of weird right now. No, Beth, I am not going to take your order because you didn't tip me the last time. I don't appreciate that. Hey, everyone. Yeah, my skin... Let me explain why my hair is like this, first of all. I'm getting ready for an audition. And just doing my hair, doing my makeup, covering up these blemishes. My skin wasn't always this bad. As a teenager, I barely had any blemishes, and they would only appear when I was getting close to getting my period and then disappear. And then I got on birth control in college, and I had really clear skin. And maybe because I've just been stressed out through numerous times after my 20s, I guess. I'm 31. I know, look at genetics. Mexican genetics. Anyways, yeah, my skin just got bad after I moved to New Mexico. I don't know if it was a combination of how dry it is here with like more stress. My diet changed a little bit too. I mean, I put on like 20 pounds too at one point. It was a mess. And then I also got off the pill. And I do wonder if that had something to do with it. I don't know. I've been to a dermatologist and they just basically told me that I needed like a prescription-based ointment and stuff, and I tried that and it didn't work, and it was worse. I got back on the pill and it got better, and so now I'm trying to eliminate as much like dairy and other stuff that I think I'm sensitive to anyways. I mean, I have been sensitive to dairy ever since it was like in my early 20s, and I don't know, it sucks. I think I did it to myself too, and also my sleep schedule is weird. I had insomnia for a lot of years, so I don't know. I also drink a lot of coffee. I don't think that has anything to do with it, but you never know. So here we are, and what is happening? Today, I woke up with the rest of the world to Russia invading Ukraine, and what a year. It's horrendous. It is nuts. Nuts. And I feel so sad for the people of Ukraine, but also the people in Russia who are against this and who are going to be affected by it ultimately. And not to mention, you know, everybody involved now and in the future, including the US, the rest of the world. It's just, that's all I'm gonna say. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I'm not gonna talk about political stuff right now. It's for another video. So, yeah, what a time. So right now I'm getting ready for I'm getting ready to film an audition. The character is a Western, historic, 1800s circa badass woman who's the leader of a gang. And I'm gonna try my best to appear as historic as possible. And so, you know, my makeup will be pretty minimal. I mean, I'm still gonna cover up these blemishes, but as much as I can make it. And then I'm just gonna straighten my hair. I'm going for a look. I booked a part in a movie too that's filming in Truth or Consequences here in New Mexico. Cat hair. And I'm really excited. And that's happening. That's coming up. So I feel like things are definitely starting to pick up again, film industry wise, here in New Mexico. So a lot of it was on hold, or somebody would test positive and they'd have to quarantine, and then that was, you know, that was an issue because then they would have to reschedule a lot. I am not a makeup artist, so I'm not a makeup artist. I do what I can when I can. I have been obsessed with the tiny house movement for a while. I remember when I lived in Colorado, I even I took my boyfriend at the time and my best friend to a tiny house convention that was in Longmont, Colorado. And they thought I was such a weirdo. And I was so excited. I've been following, I know it's been around for a while, but I think since the mid 80s, but no one really took interest in it until a couple of different granola millennials started gaining a following and an interest in it, and they were probably people who grew up in a really stable housing environment, you know, middle class. And then one day they decided that they wanted to try out this tiny house on wheels situation. If you ask me and other people who grew up at one point living in a trailer, or oh my gosh, this looks bad. We'll fix it. Oh my gosh. Living in a trailer or mobile home, they were not so proud of their experience, right? Even though a lot of these communities, mobile home communities, actually offer a sense of community, and a lot of them are situated in places that are pretty safe, family oriented, and they can be just a great source of community. So anyways, back to my obsession. It's a little bit of growing up in that environment and just missing the simplicity of it, and a lot about how housing, the American dream, becomes less and less like it's possible. Not being able to see yourself being a homeowner traditionally, like, that scares me a lot. Oh my god. I look really pale. But yeah, I put too much on. I now realize that. But we're gonna work with it. Maybe I can be like an 1800s lady who is dying of those old-timey diseases, and that's why I look more pale. We'll go with that. It adds character. Okay, yeah, it's not as bad as it looks. Maybe it's just the shadows. I don't know. I'm trying to make myself feel better. I'm embarrassed. I'm not a makeup artist. Color. I'm not even gonna add mascara. Whatever. So yes, I've been obsessed with tiny houses and designing my own, living off the grid, moving it around, and I've noticed that they have become more and more expensive, almost as if you'd be better off buying a traditional home. It's the granola millennials I'm telling you about. It's their fault. It's like everything they do. That's why we can't have anything nice. Affordable housing? Sure, until it becomes a trend. What else? But listen, it's still my goal to be able to design and afford a tiny house on wheels. Just move it around, buy some land out here. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I would want chickens or anything like that, but I will do my best to do other self-sustainable things. Just live out there with my cats, and my partner, move it around. Doesn't that sound nice? It does. Look at this, it's so funny. Did I spray any stuff for heat protection? No, I did not. I also cut my own hair. I am using a chi. I love cheese. I remember, I think I was 14 maybe when I was first introduced to a chi, and I loved it. I really wanted it, but I remember it was so expensive. So I ended up saving some money and I bought a knockoff chi on a sketchy website, probably from China, when I was 16, maybe? 15? 15, 16. Oh my gosh. It was a life changer. I now have beautiful curly hair. This is not the way that it looks, obviously, because I brushed it out, but it's beautiful and I love it, and I rarely straighten my hair anymore. But I remember growing up, I had frizzy, curly, thick hair. Now, you know, people would die for having that type of hair. But growing up, oh my gosh, especially in a community that was not diverse at all. So even diverse hair was a new notion. Did I get bullied? Yes, I did. Especially when I was in elementary school and middle school and couldn't really, well, I didn't really know how to style my hair, first of all. And I remember as a kid, my mom would do my hair and she would pull it so hard that I would start crying, and then she would get mad that I was crying. So then I think when I was 7 or 8, I just told her and I declared that I didn't want her doing my hair anymore. And that was that. Who bullied me the most? You would think it was white people. You are wrong. It was actually the other Mexican girls. Because they all had long, straight, black, brown hair. And I just wanted to fit in. And it was more about also being uncomfortable in my skin because, I mean, not only are you developing and going through puberty, but you're also going through other changes, and I think that all just had a huge effect on how I felt. And having hair that just wouldn't behave, and wouldn't be the norm, and having like my own community bully me about it, it made it so much worse. So yeah, they were the ones who bullied me the most. They would call me names. And so when I got that chi, it was life-changing. And then all of a sudden, boys were also interested in me. Damn, Mexican girls can be mean. And I did end up straightening my hair my teenage years all into like my mid-20s. No, early 20s, I would say. Because it was just so convenient too. And think about it. Curly hair is so high maintenance. Not just that, but like to add to the high maintenance, let me tell you. You have to find the right hairstylist or hair salon that even has experience. So you have to find the right hair salon that has experience cutting curly hair, and a lot of them don't. And certainly a lot of them didn't in the small ranching towns that I grew up in. Oh god. Then you're talking about products that may be really good now, but they didn't exist in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then it costs more. Haircuts cost more. Products cost more. And time. Time that you will not get back. It takes a lot of time to fix up your curly hair. And most of the time, you just hate it. Speaking about, if you were going through that, like, I ended up hating it. So, with straight hair, it's more convenient because it's easy to handle. You save up time. You can just have an easier time with it. I think about all the time that I spent on my curly hair, or even the fact that I had to straighten it. I think about all the time that went into that and how I could have used that time to do other things. Like anything. So those are things people don't really think about. And then when I went off to college, I started embracing my hair in its natural form a little bit more, and I think it had something to do with maybe my hormones changing, and hormones change the texture of your hair. And also as you age, it changes. And it's not as thick as it once was. It was like a little bit easier to manage, and maybe it was also me growing into like my face and my features and all of that. Maybe had a lot to do with how I felt about it and how it looked. So yeah. I'm the Wicked Witch of the West. Of the Southwest. Oh, that's hilarious. What a weird day. What a weird freaking day. I have the most random thoughts. Like, sometimes I will be laying in bed just thinking about the most random scenarios. I'm sure it happens to a lot of people. But like, I'll think of one thing and then it'll trickle down to a random memory, and then that memory turns into this like 2-hour trigger fest of just things that happened in my childhood, things that happened not too long ago, things that I'm not over that maybe I should go talk to a therapist about. And then it just creates anxiety. Makes it harder to sleep. But like, one random thought that trickled into memory lane was the fact that I was shoved into ESL classes when I was a kid. Purely based on the fact that I grew up in a Spanish-speaking household. But that didn't mean that I needed ESL classes. It just meant that my parents were recent migrants and I'm first generation. but English actually became my first language. Like, I speak Spanish fluently, mostly because my parents didn't speak a lot of English growing up, and my siblings, along with myself, had to do everything, which a lot of kids who are kids of immigrants you're familiar with. You become the real estate agent, you become their personal assistant, tax prep expert, translator, lawyer, landlord, car salesman, everything. I'm not going to talk about what all of that does to us children in our adult years. But anyways, back to the ESL classes. It was the 90s, and they used to send out like these little surveys to homes asking, you know, does your child speak Spanish, in my case, or speak another language at home, yes or no, and so then my parents, or us, would mark yes. The school, I think, was experimenting with like a multicultural program. I don't know what their intention was. I'm sure a lot of it was good, and it was to deal with, you know, all of the diversity and newly migrated kids of parents who were coming into their towns, their counties, their states, you know, kind of in order to just make sure that they spent more time with them. In my opinion, this created a lot of harm. Not only are you stereotyping, but like, you're hurting the kids who really don't need to be in there. And you're discriminating. That happened in my case, and my older siblings and a lot of friends that I had, and I'm sure it happened to a lot of other people as well. And also, it didn't help that my parents moved around a lot before I was 12. So they were in Northern California, always in like small rural ranch towns, where the majority of the population was white, and then the secondary population demographics was Hispanic, and then like 1% of the population was other. And schools, maybe they got more money by introducing these ESL classes that they needed, so they had to meet, I'm just guessing, they had to meet certain quotas by, you know, enlisting these kids into these classes, which they didn't need. That's what I think happened. Maybe it still happens, I don't know. But it hurt me a lot, personally. I was always a top performing student since I was a kid. I think a lot of it had to do with the fact that I was introduced to 2 languages early on, and I was basically parenting my parents, so that level of maturity, which, how sad that you have to call it maturity, you know, created like a better work ethic for me, which transitioned into school. That level of responsibility shouldn't be rewarded. Like, it shouldn't be, yes, it should be rewarded, but like, romanticized. It shouldn't be like, oh, you're so mature for your age. Or now when I meet people who are like so-called old souls and they're younger, A lot of them, I learn later on that they are, children of parents who they ended up parenting, children of immigrants or single moms most of the time. But they were basically forced into a role of being a fucking parent. Yeah. So a lot of that happened in my situation. And so to have these classes just hurt you even more. I remember I was in a normal class, and then when it came time for like a subject, I don't know, I don't remember if it was probably English. Yeah, I think it was probably English. Some lady would come into the classroom and tell the teacher would be like, Nora, and so and so and so and so, it's time to go to your class. And you would go into that class, and in my case it was myself and the rest of the Mexican children. Like, it was a small school, so you knew everyone. And at the time, I just remember feeling so dirty and disgusting. But I didn't have the words to articulate, like, what I was feeling. Like, why was this wrong? I felt so different, and I felt out of place. And it depressed me. And of course, my parents didn't really know what was happening because at the time, they were so busy working their low skill, high stress, low pay job. They don't have time for that. And they didn't really know what was happening. It wasn't until we moved around to another school that it's almost like I got a second chance or a third chance at proving that I didn't belong in these classes. And looking back at it now, I think I developed this defense mechanism to really articulate my words and speak English so well that I could fit in, that I could be normal. That's all I ever wanted, was to be normal and compete with the white kids. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know a lot of people in my situation, they can relate. And it's just crazy how you get hate from all sides, but especially from your own community. We call it crabs in a bucket, because as soon as you're climbing up, they start pulling you down. And this happens a lot, and it's sad to see, and it's even more sad that, the people who are doing this, they don't realize why they're doing it, and then the people who are being pulled down, a lot of times they don't have the tools or the language to articulate how this is making them feel and why it's wrong. And schools contribute to this. When we finally settled down in Colorado, I think my parents by that time, they kind of had a sense of what was happening, because I think that they were still getting those little slips sent in asking what language yay, what language their kids spoke. And I think I probably did it, or my other siblings probably started doing it. We would put that English was our primary language so that they wouldn't harass us and leave us alone. So since then, I was able to succeed. And, what do you know? I was able to compete with the rest of my peers. But that also came with social consequences. A lot of the students, again, in Colorado, this was primarily a white demographic town, with Hispanics being the next, and then 2% other. I was always a fan of just being so involved in school. I love sports. I did soccer, I did the musical, speech and debate, choir, student council. I was so involved primarily because I just loved it, and I was super social, and I loved being friends with every type of demographic of a school. If you had to guess if I were popular in high school, I would say, yeah, just because I was friends with everyone. And the second reason why I was so involved is also because I didn't want to be at home babysitting my younger sisters, being forced, or just letting my parents dictate what sort of life I was gonna lead. I remember telling them, because I did suffer from Mexican machismo, Marianismo expectations of especially young women. They're different now. But back then, they sort of didn't have any expectations for myself or my other sisters, which is very sad. And I remember telling them that I was going to go to college, and they were like, no, you're not. You're not going. Who says that? Well, some Mexican parents do. And I proved them wrong. I proved everybody wrong. And I think after that, after I left home, and it really did present the reality of the situation to my parents. Then they acknowledged that I was making my own decisions and that I was serious about all of this. I think that's when especially my mom started reflecting on a lot of her behavior and toxic traits, for the best. And I think that started her development as a person and education. And we have such a great relationship now, but it was not always easy. And nobody's perfect. Parents are not perfect unless you are a fucking psycho or narcissist or just abandon your kids. There's always that. I don't believe in you should love your parents regardless. No, you shouldn't. You should not. That doesn't happen. But anyways, gosh, ESL classes. Stop. I also think that because of that experience, I always had in my, I developed a freaking tough skin and a new set of values. And one of my values that I still hold on to is to never become a victim. Never. And I think that's one of the reasons now I don't have that many friends by choice. Because I have experienced a lot of friendships, especially in the acting community. I don't understand what is happening. I think I do understand. But there have been so many people in my life who started presenting these victim mentality values, where they just expected everything, that I just wanted nothing to do with. And I can think of a couple of friendships that I cared for, but they started acting a certain way and saying certain things that if you ask them, they probably have a different story and they will say, oh, well, it ended because Nora didn't like the fact that I was defending this or that or blah blah blah. But it's not the case for me. I just saw them. I can think of one particular person. They just started digging themselves into a really huge victim hole. And I don't want any part of that. I know who the real victims are. And they are not around us. I am not a victim. Wow, what a day. Okay, look, see? It's kind of blended in more. It's the lighting in here, too. Because I was feeling a little bit nervous. It's like, oh my gosh, they're all gonna laugh at you. La-di-da. Well, I'm gonna put on something along the tone of Western 1800s before I do, or for my audition. That's about it. Kind of touch up the rest of this. That's it. Thanks for listening to my rants. I just have a lot on my mind and it felt really good. Just expressing it. I'll let you know how everything goes. Thank you. Stay safe out there. It's a crazy time.